welcome to our YouTube channel, and we are
J Publishing.
And today we thought it would be a great idea if we talked about different challenges when writing. Okay, and specifically writing a book. Okay, now one challenge that I thought about is being inspired to write. Now oftentimes I sit in front of the computer and nothing comes out. But I have a solution for this. I've found that my juices start flowing when I read other books and sometimes some of my own books. The advice I have for you, make the time to read at least 4 days a week. It'll make a big difference.
Another challenge that an author may face is being worried whether people will like their work or not. I think any artist faces this problem because we're very self-conscious, most people are, and we're really hard on ourselves when it comes to our work. At least I am. A solution that can help you with this is just to be true to yourself. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be a hater. The best-selling authors in the world have tons of haters, but you just have to look at the positive and just keep doing what you love no matter the hate, I guess. As long as you're doing something positive, I should say that.
Great advice, Elise. Another challenge with writing that I often find is having the time to write. Our lives are so busy. I'm a mom, a wife, I work. All of these different things take up a whole lot of my time. So finding the time to write is pretty difficult. But as authors, as writers, we have to make the time to pursue our passion.
Yep.
The solution for this, take 30 minutes at least 5 days a week to set aside to write. Once everyone's in bed, all your chores are done. Advice, nighttime is usually the quietest time.
Really is.
And quite often you're free to escape to your own little world. And we all as writers know that we create our own little worlds. So that's the perfect time for you to do that. So that's the advice that I have for you concerning that.
And another challenge that a lot of authors face is not knowing how to end your story. This is something I struggled a lot with my novel that's coming out soon called Humanity's End. It took me a while to come up with the ending. I knew the last section, but I didn't know how to properly end it to kind of tie everything together. A solution that I have, I guess, would be to reading other people's books, especially all the way through, to see kind of how they tie their book together and how they end their books. Not saying to copy people's books, but to use their book as a reference and to help give you some ideas for your novel.
Okay, good point. And again, you're not going to copy their ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Just sometimes this will help to give you your own ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Of something that you can pursue in your own book. Now, another challenge with writing is finding the perfect character name.
Yes.
I go through names. I've changed them in so many different books. We've got several books coming out that you guys, will learn about in the coming months. But finding the perfect name, that name that jumps out at you, that character that's in your mind or that you started to put on paper, and you see them in your mind and you know what you want them to be like, but matching them with that name. So what I found that helps me with that, the solution to that is to review names in baby books. So I would go and I would get a baby book and I would go through different names and try to find one. Now my advice there, avoid the cost of buying the baby book. I used to buy the baby book years ago and I realized I can just look up the names online. So I would do a search for baby names and I would go through and pick the letters, and then of course some of these character names were names that I absolutely fell in love with. When I wrote I Like My Dirty Green Shoes, his name was Ace. Ace was a name that I just absolutely loved. It jumped out at me. So don't be afraid to pick and choose your characters' names. If you find something that you fall in love with after you've already gone ahead, and started working on your manuscript, then you can of course go back in, change the name, and replace it. But by all means, don't be afraid to search the baby names.
Yeah, that's true. Another struggle or challenge that authors face would be, at least for me, is being way too critical of my work.
Yes,
I think literally
I'm
every,
guilty of that.
like I mentioned before, artists, just whether you actually draw or you write, everyone struggles with that, or at least most people do. I think the really bad thing about this challenge is that if you're too critical of your work, and that kind of ties to being worried whether people like your work, I think that can stop you from achieving your dreams of becoming a published author, because you're focusing too much on being a perfectionist or worried about what other people think. So I think a solution is really to just, I guess, I don't know, like I mentioned before, kind of just be true to yourself and just stop being so hard on yourself. I think it's important, obviously, to edit your book and make sure it's the best it can be, but I think there's something called overdoing it, which I know I overdid with my novel.
If when you're writing you make a mistake, it's okay. You are the creator of your story, so it's perfectly okay. If you have to go back and rewrite something or change something, that happens. And I've heard stories of bestsellers where they've rewritten their books over and over, until they got to the point where they really loved it. So don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And for the last point with challenge with writing that we have is write what you know.
Yes.
And research what you don't. Okay? So a lot of times it's easy to write something you're familiar with, but also research what you don't know. So if you put something in your novel that you're not familiar with, you want it to be as accurate as possible. So take the time to research it. If you're telling a story, about what it's like to be a lawyer, and you don't know anything about law, you don't know anything about being a lawyer, you can research it online. You can interview a lawyer. If you're talking about being a chef, you can interview a chef, whatever the case may be, but you want your story to be as accurate as possible. I remember working on a mystery, and that novel hasn't come out yet, but I did a lot of research. I had to do research on weapons and different things like that was in my novel because I was not familiar with those things. I had to ask, people that were in different positions, detectives, different things like that, to find out kind of, the accuracy, of what was going on in that particular story.
Yeah, because there's always going to be someone that knows every topic, at least one topic in your book. So you have to make sure that, like you were saying, it's as accurate as possible. Because, for example, if someone wrote about a high school student, I personally am a senior, so if somebody made a novel about an elementary school kid and they're learning about the Pythagorean theorem, which you learn in high school, I would know that's not accurate, and they clearly didn't do their research or didn't experience it for themselves yet. So it's very important to make sure things are accurate, because someone's always going to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we really hope that you all were able to take, some little nuggets, from what we shared with you with our different experience in writing. And you guys will soon see we have a lot of different styles, with writing and right across several different genres. And we can't wait to share, some of the other titles with you all that's coming. But if you have any questions that you could think of pertaining to writing, anything that, any type of advice you may want, we'll do our best to respond and give you something, some advice as accurate as possible, because, it's always a growing process. It's always a learning process. And as a writer, you're always striving to be better. You're always striving to grow and everything. And we just want to do what we can to help you along in your journey as well. Take some time aside to follow your dream, to follow your passion, because anything's possible. So until next time, we look forward to talking to you guys soon, and we hope you enjoyed it.